Hello, my name is Adam Bakker, and this is my PowerPoint presentation on who should NPOs be targeting for volunteers. The purpose of this PowerPoint is to provide two recommendations to an NPO from your city. I've decided to choose the Wayne Gretzky Sports Center from Brantford, Ontario. The Wayne Gretzky Sports Center is a massive hockey complex that annually has nationwide tournaments from teams all over Canada. Along with those teams, there's oftentimes international teams that make the trip also to these tournaments. I'm going to be analyzing these recommendations through some visual aid in my PowerPoint, as well as backing up my recommendations with statistics from the survey done, which is on the Excel file that had been provided for us. So, as slide 3 shows, my recommendation number 1 is to target the youth in Ontario. There's two figures on this slide, figure 1 and figure 2. Figure 1, the one on the left with the red bar graph, shows the number of volunteers Canada-wide in the last 12 months by percent. As you can see, it is 35 to 44-year-olds as well as 65 to 74-year-olds that lead the way here at just under 45%. The rest of the age groups come in at between 30 and 35%, with 15 to 24-year-olds coming in at 32%. Now, if you look to the right at figure 2, this looks at the number of volunteers Ontario-wide in the last 12 months by percent rather than just Canada-wide. This shows that 15 to 24-year-olds in Ontario actually volunteer at the highest rate of 50% rather than the 65 to 74-year-olds, which do volunteer at a high rate but not at the same rate as 15 to 24-year-olds. Now, why do 15 to 24-year-olds volunteer so much more in Ontario than in the rest of the other provinces in Canada? Well, I believe this has something to do with the mandated 40 hours of volunteering that high school students have to do in Ontario. This is not done in all other provinces, which can explain the lower numbers in those provinces, but it is done in Ontario, which is why I definitely believe that an NPO like the Wayne Gretzky Center in Ontario should be targeting the youth for potential volunteers because they all need the hours to graduate. So it's a mutual interest, definitely. So on to slide 4, where it's my second recommendation, which is avoid focusing on gender when looking for sport volunteers. This slide shows 3 different figures, figure 3, figure 4, and figure 5. Figure 4, the pie graph on the bottom left, compares males to females in number of volunteers in sport. The graph shows females are 52% of the volunteers in sport, whereas males are 48%. Now, although female does have a higher percent, I do not recommend focusing on gender when looking for volunteers. There's too little of a difference between male and females to focus on that as a potential way to gain more volunteers. However, if you look up at figure 3, it shows the number of volunteers by province. It is Nova Scotia, Ontario, and Alberta that come in at the highest mark here. Figure 5 on the right, the colorful pie graph, is the age comparison of number of volunteers in sport. The big white chunk, 55 to 64-year-olds, takes up the biggest piece of the pie, so to speak, and just under that, the blue mark of 25 to 34-year-olds takes up the second biggest. I recommend focusing on targeting these age groups, or if you're looking by province, Nova Scotians, Ontarians, and Albertians, rather than male and female, because there's definitely more of a variance in those two figures, figure 3 and figure 5, than figure 4. So, on to my conclusion. My first recommendation, targeting the youth. In Ontario, 50% of 15 to 24-year-olds volunteered in the last 12 months, which is the highest rate of any age group in that province. Canada-wide, the success rate drops, so the other provinces do not have that high of a success rate for that age group, so it's definitely an advantage that should be taken. It's definitely should be taken advantage of by NPOs in the province. My second recommendation, avoid focusing on gender. It's unnecessary to avoid specifying gender because of how close the two are in sport. Age and geographical location play a much bigger role, and if you were going to focus on anything in that volunteering for sport area, make sure it's not gender and it's age or geographical location. Thank you.